While Russian troops continue to capture several hundred square kilometers of Ukraine every month, after 4 years of war, it is clear that Russia has already strategically lost the war. Even if Ukraine is forced to withdraw from the Donbass, that won't change anything. Because the question for a strategic victory is Russia better off after the war than before? Or different? Has Russia achieved its strategic goals at acceptable costs? So, is it enough to politically control Ukraine, push back NATO, restore deterrence, and strengthen Russia's status as a great power? Here, you can only answer very clearly, no. In this video, I will show you that Russia is losing the war despite territorial gains, not because of fabricated Ukrainian successes, but because of visible and verifiable Russian failures. Holy smokes! Now save the most at Holy with my code. 4 years ago, the Russian invasion of Ukraine took place on multiple fronts. While many observers, myself included, expected a quick Russian victory, the war has now entered its 5th year. After rapid initial advances, Russia was decisively defeated and contained on the battlefield 3 times. Therefore, today, despite successes since 2023, Russia controls less territory than it did in March 2022. By 2025, Russia has captured 0.6% of Ukraine at the cost of 200,000 to 300,000 soldiers. Let's move on to the geopolitical aspect. Armenia has lost Nagorno-Karabakh, which has minimized Russia's ability to influence Armenia and Azerbaijan. With the signing of the Armenian-Azerbaijani peace agreement, Armenia no longer needs Russia, as long as Azerbaijan and Turkey uphold the agreement. Assad has been defeated despite Russian help and has now become a gamer in Moscow, while the new government in Damascus maintains good relations with Washington. While there have been several military strikes that have embarrassed Iran, a U.S. military strike is currently imminent, which Russia will not be able to prevent. Maduro was kidnapped, and Russia was completely helpless. His successor, Delcy Rodriguez, is now effectively at the mercy of the USA. Several of Russia's client states have fallen, and others have reoriented their foreign policy because no more help can be expected from Russia. Russian influence has therefore measurably declined. The relationship between Russia and China has also completely shifted. Russia is now undoubtedly the junior partner in this relationship. In addition, there's the military alliance with North Korea, which is at least a new ally, but Russia is now committed to protecting North Korea. Is that really a strategic success? Let's turn to the military aspect itself. After 4 years of invasion, Russia hasn't achieved a single one of its goals. The successes are only territorial. In every other respect, Russia's situation is bad. There have probably been more than 1.2 million casualties, of which at least 325,000 are likely to have been killed, and probably even significantly more. More than 200,000 killed have now been individually identified with publicly available data, which sets the absolute lower limit for Russian fatalities. These are more losses than Russia has suffered in all its other conflicts since 1945 combined. Depots are increasingly or largely emptied. In the event of future conflicts, there is hardly anything left to activate, even if the war were to end today. In the future, it won't be the case that Russia is sitting on 10,000 battle tanks that it can modernize, simply because these tanks are now wrecks in Ukraine. Let's not even talk about the Black Sea Fleet or what's left of it, or about Operation Spiderweb, where Russia has lost irreplaceable bombers. The war has now lasted longer than the war against Nazi Germany, between June 1941 and May 1945. At the beginning of the war, Russia had the strongest army in Europe. Now, there is a massive rearmament of numerous European countries, which will soon be able to stop Russia on the ground, even without American support. Or shall we talk about Finland and Sweden, now in NATO? With Finland, Russia's border with NATO has actually more than doubled, from about 1,213 kilometers to 2,549 kilometers. Additionally, 360,000 soldiers are added to NATO after a mobilization, with potentially hundreds of thousands more trained soldiers in Finland. The surveillance and defense pressure in the north has also increased drastically in Russia due to Finland's accession. You don't have to monitor whether you're getting enough vitamins or minerals with today's sponsor. I'm getting older, and I can't deny it anymore. I have an enormous workload and still have to maintain my health, as long as I can't optimize the workload elsewhere. One of them is making sure I don't have any deficiencies when it comes to minerals, vitamins, and so on. AG1 contacted me in 2024. I was skeptical at first and then tested it for half a year. Today, I don't travel anymore without taking AG1 with me. In fact, since I've been taking it, I haven't been seriously ill. Only once did I suffer from headaches for several days, and that was during a trip where I didn't take it with me. Of course, I can't say for sure if that's the reason. I also can't say whether the fact that I haven't gotten sick anymore is due to something else. I also feel like my muscle recovery is good. These are all things where AG1 is very careful to make sure that, as a promotional partner, I don't say anything wrong. I'm explicitly not allowed to say that anything is better. To make sure that the health claims aren't exaggerated, let's take a look at the product itself. 4 clinical studies have been conducted. It's certified by the Cologne List and Informed Sport. And when it comes to vitamins and minerals, it ensures that you don't take any risks. Anyone who orders now will receive 10 travel packs, a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2, and the welcome kit for free with a subscription, worth €86. And when we talk about a subscription, the subscription can be cancelled or paused at any time. And you have a 30-day money-back guarantee, which means you can try it out completely risk-free to see if it's right for you or not. And if you're not convinced, you can use the 30-day money-back guarantee and get your money back. You can find all the information at www.drinkage1.de. But let's get back to the video, or let's talk about the economic consequences. The European market is largely gone and will completely disappear. The pipelines that were built during the Soviet Union and since then have effectively become worthless. China now dictates the prices for Russia instead, because significant pipeline sales are only possible to China. Everywhere else, oil and gas have to be transported differently, which massively reduces Russia's profits. The other customers therefore also pay significantly less than the usual market price. So Russia has to sell at large discounts. And on top of that, there is a severe labor shortage in Russia due to losses at the front and the expansion of the military. Probably 1 million well-educated Russians have fled abroad. And the longer the war lasts, the fewer of them will ever return. The attacks on Russian infrastructure, sometimes over 1,000 kilometers behind the front lines, with drones and now also FP5 Flamingo, have now taken place. This shows that Russia's strategic depth against Ukraine no longer exists. The Bank of Finland therefore also believes that Russia has had at least 280 billion in direct war expenditures so far. That's 280 billion in opportunity costs, meaning money that now lies as smoldering wreckage in Ukraine instead of having built roads, railways, canals, or universities, which would of course have improved Russia. But this also ignores all the long-term consequences, like care for the wounded. Everyone who becomes disabled today will need care for the rest of their lives, which the Russian state is actually supposed to pay for. Pensions for veterans are also added to this. Veteran status provides a higher pension and benefits even before retirement age. That also needs to be considered. In addition, there are social costs due to the loss of taxpayers. Every fallen or wounded person is no longer productive in the state and can no longer pay taxes to the government. The social costs caused by brutalized soldiers who become criminals must also not be ignored. The current economy is purely a war economy, whose expenditures mean no productivity for the country. When the war ends, there is a threat of an enormous economic shock because the economy will have to be converted back to civilian production. But let's talk about Ukraine. Was Russia at least successful here? Russia will probably have more territory at the end of the war. That seems more or less certain to me. However, the Ukrainian army is significantly stronger today than it was at the beginning of the war. Ukraine is now receiving modern weapons from foreign nations that previously did not want to supply it with anything. Under Obama, there were just sleeping bags, and Germany famously only sent helmets at the start of the war. In the meantime, Ukraine has also built up its own arms industry, which is working on cruise missiles and ballistic missiles that can actively threaten Russia. Any doubt about who the real threat is has now also disappeared in Ukraine. It used to be that the country was divided and torn between East and West, but now it is united by its hostility toward Russia. The likelihood that a puppet regime will end up in Kiev is therefore much smaller today than it was in January 2022, when at least theoretically there was still a possibility. Instead, Ukraine is now being integrated into Europe out of sheer self-protection. The economic integration that will take place, as well as closer military cooperation, are clearly set out and will follow. These are in Europe's interest, because Europe cannot afford a Ukraine that collapses economically after the war, or can no longer withstand the Russians. So Europe will have to integrate and support Ukraine in the coming decades, whether it wants to or not, out of pure self-interest. So Ukraine can expect to receive significant help, both economically and militarily, once the war is over. What can Russia expect instead? Ukraine will be integrated into the EU to enable reconstruction and guarantee its future. Let's imagine what the situation would be like if, after the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the US controlled only 20% of Iraq after 4 years of war and had lost 1 million soldiers. Would we describe that as an American victory? Especially if, by then, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates had joined the axis of resistance, so that the American situation in the Gulf would have actually worsened significantly. We have to be clear. It's impossible to predict how the war will develop, since this depends on future decisions by the nations involved and contains many uncertainties. However, at one crucial point, Ukraine's victory is already final and irreversible. War is the continuation of politics by other means, as Clausewitz already wrote. So war is not won by the side that conquers more land, destroys more cities, or kills more people. War is won by the side that achieves and enforces its political objectives. Putin has failed to achieve all his political objectives with his war. He has even worsened Russia's situation. Instead of a partnership on equal footing, he is now China's junior partner. Instead of keeping NATO at a distance, it has now doubled its border with Russia, and 2 powerful new members have joined NATO, which has also turned the Baltic Sea into a NATO sea. Putin has repeatedly stated that Ukrainians are actually Russians, who have been led to believe they are their own people. He claims that Ukrainians don't truly exist as a nation. Some Ukrainians might have even agreed with that before 2022. And especially before 2014. Now, native Russian speakers are stopping the use of their mother tongue and switching to Ukrainian. What Ukrainian presidents couldn't achieve in 3 decades, Putin has now accomplished. Instead of erasing the Ukrainian nation, he has truly united it and brought it to life. A nation that is now being defended to the last drop of blood by millions of its citizens. Putin may end the war with more territory, but that doesn't determine who wins the war. What he has achieved politically does. And here, Russia's situation has dramatically worsened almost everywhere. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. And leave a comment if you have something to add. If you're new here, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss future videos. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. German time, the next live stream will cover a Ukraine war update, followed by a Q&A. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.
Thanks to Patreon supporters,
as well as the members here on YouTube. In particular, I would like to thank Lieutenant Colonels Mahamori and Thomas Komps, as well as Lieutenants Vision, Soundlab, Robert Viel, Matt Burke, Möter 1000 Entertainment, Janis Gu, NTX, Sascha Müller, Cunningham, Oistres, Jans vom Eck, Uwe die Fremen, Nickname Tubib, Carsten Schulz, Gulasch Nascher 4000 and Tequila. 42. Thank you. This wouldn't be possible without them.